Hello everybody, welcome back as ever to William Locke's where we program Minecraft mods live on camera, and things heavily go wrong. Because they must, it's practically prophecy at this point. So, last time we were working in various oddities, and we were working to try and get the goblins to tame the wolves into wargs, and then breed them into wargs. And as near as I can tell, that entire makeup is now functional. There's just a few more things that we need to do with that, but for right now, we are hanging inside of various equipment, the hastily, hopefully, upcoming first module that plugs in to various oddities 1.16, and there's good news and there's bad news. The good news is that it's basically ready to release. The bad news is I can't currently release it, and the reason for that is simply that there is some mix-in in this, and for whatever reason, which I believe Flying is currently working on, it works just fine in the test environment, but if I export it, if I actually compile the mod and I stick it into like a mod pack, it doesn't work. It doesn't get run at all. Doesn't make any sense whatsoever, to me, at least. So Flying suspects it's some kind of linking issue, which means it is complete gibberish to me. So consequently, I can't solve that. But, since it works in a dev environment, I can show you it there. So let's have a look, shall we? And I don't recall if I unequipped it. Well, okay, yes I did. Grand. Right. So here, barring one singular Golem-Bane Scarab, which is essentially a proof of concept of how these items will slot into the various oddities type system, here is all of the items currently available inside of various equipment. So, pick a category, A, B, C. A being the far left from your perspective, everybody. Twitch was muted and you were in a different tab, so you didn't notice? Oh dear. Not to worry, I could have pulled a hilarious, like, content creator prank and just mouthed constantly while the music was turned off or something. Okay, let's start over here, shall we? So these should look fairly familiar. We have the Crown of the Archfey, which is worn predominantly by, I have some other stuff I should take off for a hot minute here. That is worn predominantly by the Witch Archfey and can now be worn by anybody. And we also have the Court Fey mask. And these are both curio. Well, these are both helmets, but we will be getting to curios in a hot second. So consequently, you can wear them as and how you like. There is no like negatives for them. There is in fact slight positives. In fact, that they're especially in that they are both completely indestructible. Let me just, yeah, that's better for me. Okay. Over here, moving on, I should hastily note, almost everything in the mod currently is dyeable. just because I could, more than anything else, and a lot of these are decorative, so why not? So you can have whatever color of berry you like on the Archfey mask, you can have whatever color of faceplate you want on the Court Fey mask, that kind of thing. And we have some then more familiar things. So of course we have the Magician's Hat, otherwise known as the Witch Hat, which is craftable, out of leather, works very nicely, looks very nice too. We then have the hood, similarly craftable, similarly dyeable, and also very much has its special feature. So if I shift right click, it goes onto my head in its upwards fashion, and is now actually a hood. So yeah. And that can be used to obscure your player nameplates. Obviously I can't show that in single player, but that can be used to obscure your player nameplate at any distance, whether or not you are actually crouching. So, pretty handy. Mostly for sneaking up on people in multiplayer. It doesn't have any effect on mobs noticing you, but mobs can't see that anyways. Skipping past this happy item for a hot second, and moving on to this assortment. So, I asked the Come Block Home folks if there was anything that they would like shoved into various equipment before I put out the first version. If there was something that they would like enjoy having along, so that they could like slide that into their playthroughs and whatnot. And the overwhelming answer was cosmetic horns. So these are not craftable, at least not currently. They might show up from like a trader at some point, but for right now they're just creative mode only. But we have a variety of horns. So we have, if I swap back into creative, that would help, so I can actually pick at these things, thank you. Oh, hey Tops, how you doing? We have deer antlers, we have ram horns, we have hartebeest horns, which are a very interesting creature to look at. And if you craft the deer antlers and the ram horns together, you of course get the Kirin horns. Why wouldn't you? And all of these are dyeable, once again. And all of these are actually curios, which means that they can fit on your head slot, and you would be absolutely capable of wearing them with your helmet, for instance, just like that. And if you dye them, the model just change color, all that kind of things. And there is also a special property to these, which is that they are completely soulbound. If you're not familiar with what that is, soulbound, at least in terms of Minecraft, means that a given item will not be dropped off of you when you die, you'll still be there when you actually respawn. Which I think adds quite significantly to the sensation that these aren't like an item exactly, it's not like a piece of gear, it's just something that it's just something your body do, I guess. And, yep, there we go. So you just, the fact that it's a head curio means that you can also just wear it with any helmet, so it looks pretty nice to have that. Entertaining to see, certainly. So, that is the majority of it. And then, there was the one last thing that I figured out after I finished with the horns. Well, actually, there's a couple of things. I did also make these rings, which do render. They're a little hard to see, but they're there. Then there's limitations of how they render as well, but I am nonetheless able to actually render rings on people, which is, again, not a feature that I think anybody asked for in that case, but you know, it's a feature I implemented. But then there is one final item, and that is the blindfold. I don't know why this was a thing that came to mind that I should implement, but it did. So, the blindfold is a helmet item as well as a head slot curio, which means we can put it here and wear a helmet at the same time, or we can just get the +1 armor benefit from the blindfold here. It does have durability. And it does one thing, and it does that one thing only, but it does it extremely well. I should also note, this is craftable. You can make this out of carpets and string. Everybody ready for this, because it's quite a look. Now you're doing the best with the rules you're given, but the rings are very funny. Yeah, like, we don't have fingers, but we have ring slots. There's a reason basically nobody renders rings on Minecraft characters. In fact, looking at the underside of Steve, I'm pretty sure he only has 4 digits. I don't think he actually has a full hand width. Also, I'm fairly certain the pattern of his, like, fists is very similar to the pattern for his shoes. Anyways. So, this is what the blindfold does. So we can see we do have a model that renders, whether or not it's in the slot there. And, this is what we got now. This is our life. This is what happens when you're wearing a blindfold. Now, because, I will immediately tell you, because this is a helmet item as well as a head curio, it means that you can do, for instance, if you were a terrible human being, you could enchant it with the Curse of Binding, and then use a dispenser to put it onto someone, provided they're not already wearing a helmet. And in this condition, the only creature that you can see is yourself. You cannot discern what the actual light level is in your area. You cannot see any kind of terrain. You can still see a few things. So, if I stare down, we can see, I hope on Twitch, you can still see the sort of bounding box that happens when you are hovering over a block with your cursor. You can't see other entities, but you can see particles. And that means that if I pick a direction and start sprinting, I can get an idea of what exactly it is I'm walking on. There's an additional caveat, which is you can see glowing creatures, so let's effect give @e type equals villager glowing. Ah, there you are. So, you can see glowing creatures, because it makes sense that if you can see them through walls anyways, then you can probably see them through a completely mundane, carpet-based blindfold. And this effect lasts well, essentially permanently. It lasts as long as the blindfold is on you. The second you take it off, it lifts. Now, you might ask, lying, there's a blindness status effect, why didn't you just use that? Which is a valid question. If I engage blindness, because I went hard, I went pretty hard on the, on the game design of this, I guess we'd call it. This is the effect of blindness. We can still see things that are right in front of us. We can't really see anything in the distance. We can still see the sun. You might notice the skybox changed to the end there. We can still see pretty much everything. We're useless at ranged combat, sure, but we can still actually, like, navigate quite happily. We can still actually engage in melee combat quite happily. Like, taking on a creeper in this mode is not the least bit of problem. Skeletons, maybe, but not, like, zombies, or crabs, or scorpions, or most mobs in general. Blindness also doesn't really feel like blindness. It feels more like standing in a dimly lit room. And I wanted to go a little better than that, so... Blindness obviously doesn't have any impact on us when we're already blinded. The way that I look at this with the blindfold is that the blindness effect is like a... It's actually like... I guess we'd call it in some kind of magical or chemical visual impairment. So like maybe your vision's gone blurry, that kind of thing. Whereas the blindfold, you literally cannot see. So you can feel your way around by using your cursor. You can have an idea of what you're walking on by checking the particles of what's generating. You can still access inventories and all that sort of stuff, you just have to find them, of course. And I could even interact with the villager that's around here if I had the slightest clue where he was. But not blindness, the effect should be, blindness the effect should the effect of dim vision. I'm not quite understanding you there, Cam, but yeah. I like this because it feels more immersive, especially the fact that we can still see ourselves. We can still see ourselves because we're aware of ourselves. As a human, there's one of our senses that doesn't get a lot of press is called proprioception. And it is the knowledge that if I put my hand behind my head, firstly, I have this weird sensation that my hand is behind my head. Moreover, I can tell you exactly how many fingers that my hand is actually holding up. And all of that is a sense called proprioception. The knowledge of one's body parts in relation to one another. So, when you're blindfolded, the only thing you know is your proprioception. So we actually have, like, I like that we can see ourselves. Whereas you can still see yourself, you can also see basically everybody else when you're blinded. And I like the feeling around with the cursor, because it feels like just sort of reaching my hand out, trying to identify what's, like, where a solid surface is, that kind of thing. So this I find is, like, I don't know, to use a very common buzzword in, like, video games, this feels more immersive to me. Minecraft blindness should be called dim vision, not blindness, as you are not blind, just limited vision. Correct. I would agree with you there. So yeah, that is the blindfold. Now, unfortunately, the blindfold is where Bear's equipment actually starts to use mix-in, and for whatever reason, that's not working. So currently, I can't ship Bear's equipment and have the blindfold actually work. I don't know why that is. flying's on the case. Hopefully we figure it out, that sort of thing. If the worst comes to worst, then by the end of this week I will just, like, turn off the blindfold entirely and just ship without it, because I feel like we've got plenty even without it. Oh yeah, another interesting thing. Because the blindfold doesn't use the blindness effect, it's not subject to the side effects of the blindness effect. So, the most obvious thing that people know about the blindness effect is you can't see very far. But a little known additional side effect of the blindness effect is you can't deal critical hits, and you also cannot sprint. Now you might rightly ask if doing any of that is wise whilst you are blindfolded, but I'd argue you should still be able to do that whilst blindfolded. I would argue, in fact, that running might be one of the wisest things to do when someone blindfolds you under most circumstances. So, yeah, that's another upside. Now, there is another slight thing. If I get a couple of spectral arrows, doodle-doo, and I go over to this crafting table, because we can't really use creative. If we shove these in any combination with the blindfold, we get the cosmetic blindfold. And this, very simply, is visually identical to the blindfold. It just doesn't actually blind you. So, combine blindfold with a pair of spectral arrows, poke a few holes if you like, and you can see just quite normally. Later on, the blindfold will have some advantages. It will make you immune to things like a petrifying gaze from a Gorgon or Medusa. But for right now, it's mostly for challenge, I think. Challenges, RP, minigames, I guess, if you like them. That kind of thing. Pin the tail on the multiplayer. But yeah, for right now, doesn't really work, so I'm probably gonna be turning that off for a bit. Now, if there is anything else that you think I should shove into various equipment before I put out whatever version comes by the end of this week, by all means let me know, because I am very interested in finding out. And otherwise, let's hop over to various oddities once again, and get to work. But that is the state of affairs with various equipment. It is very swiftly on its way. I really hope I can get the blindfold into it, but we'll see. Depends on whether or not things work. Cat ears. I don't know how many, like, purely creative mode cosmetic things I should put into it. Really? Especially not at this stage, where it's like, here's a couple of hats, and a blindfold that makes you completely blind. It's like, I feel like I should maybe put in a few more, like, useful functional things before I get too deep in on cosmetics, that kind of thing. But anyways, we've been working solidly on the wargs. We have, I believe, gotten their genetic well, actually, we haven't gotten their behavior thing. They've got their genes working, but they do still have some problems. So, oh, wait, I'm getting ahead of myself. There is a thing I need to show you in various oddities this week, because as of, I think this morning, I can't remember exactly, a scarf? Yeah, maybe a scarf. Scarf would be nice. Don't know what effect it would have, it'd be cute. As of about this morning, there is a new beta version of Various Oddities available, and if you're curious, that is Various Oddities 116_001J, because I am rapidly running through the alphabet as I try to ensure that I get all the bugs squashed. But the newest version includes a nice new feature, in addition to some bug fixes, but it includes a new subtype. This particular subtype is a lot more specific than most, but it has some very interesting effects. So, first and foremost, I'm transparent. This is the first, like, creature type of any kind that actually affects your appearance. And that's because this particular subtype is known as incorporeal, meaning, in most cases, as unto a ghost. Also, frequently applies to specters, wraiths, and clouds of vapor, that kind of thing. But, obviously, there's a couple of things. So, first is that unless you are sprinting actively, you do not trigger redstone ore. If I start running, off it goes. Another thing is that you do not trigger pressure plates, which could be more that could be more hindrance than help, depending on how you set your base up. Another thing is, you do not trample crops. And another thing is you don't take falling damage, which... whatevs, I guess. That's because you are this is because you are completely weightless, by the by. All of this is because incorporeal creatures have no physical, like, weight to them. They're either levitating constantly, or they have no, like, substantive mass, that kind of thing. That, of course, however, is not the big party trick of being incorporeal. The big party trick of being incorporeal is, being able to do this. Seems like you're doing a good time to see this new type. Oh yeah. So the big party trick of being incorporeal is that you can in fact walk through walls. You can walk through any block, currently any block actually. The version J does not have any limit on this, which is going to change for K and onwards. But in version J you can walk through any block whatsoever, provided at least one side is passable. Now that can be air, most commonly it will be air. It also applies to things like bushes, things that don't have a hitbox in short, or a collision box to be exact. Which means that this particular solid lump, I can't move through the middle of it because there's a block of obsidian there that is not exposed to any kind of air. But if the block below it was air, I could happily walk forward. I would then fall out of it, but still. Here we go. So you can phase through anything of that. Now, obviously, that by itself would be ridiculously overpowered. Although you would not be able to, like, walk from one cave to another underground most commonly, it would nonetheless be kind of absurd. So, there's a few tweaks we have here. The first is that the sky gets swapped out, so that we cannot see the sun at all. Can't see the sun or moon, have no visual guidance of that. Obviously, the next thing is, the fog comes in quite a bit. And the final tweak is that entities that are more than about 8 blocks away cease to render. This means that you more or less only have a fairly short, about 8 block radius view of the outside world whilst you're inside of a block. Obviously, additionally, if you try and actually, like, punch anybody, or use a sword on anybody, or shoot an arrow or anything, it's just gonna get stuck in the block that you're inside of. And the last thing, which is you cannot switch to third person, which is mostly fine because if you did, you would pretty much just see your own head. It's just so how Minecraft rendering works. But if you are in third person already, and I am looking that way, not at us here yet, then when you go into a wall, you're immediately shunted into first person again. But entertainingly, you come back out, still back in third person, so it gets retained despite you not being able to actually see that. And what that means is that you can make basically 2 block deep walls at the most. 1 block will be fine, but 2 blocks is fine, is the main issue. And then 3 blocks, you start to have some trouble. But you don't take falling damage, you can jump up inside of structures however much you like, provided the blocks above you are suitably exposed, and you can just enjoy that. So that is available in version 001J, and feel free to test the ever-living hell out of it, because there's probably going to be something I forgot about, or like completely forgot, that sort of thing. That's what beta versions are for. This is probably fine, but let me know if you find a bug, essentially. But what do we think? Overpowered? Completely absurd? Totally useless? Do tell, do tell. This is typically exclusive to Undead, I will say. But, it like, much like all of the other aspects of the type system, it is not limited in any meaningful fashion, so you can add it to anything. Magical beast incorporeal, sure. Incorporeal construct, fine. Maybe you're some kind of escaped industrial chemical, I don't know. Do incorporeals have negatives like a weakness to something? Not really. They're immune to falling damage. Incorporeal as a subtype in D&D doesn't have a whole ton of negatives. You can walk straight through people, so I guess in theory one of the negatives is that you're not the least bit any kind of, like, effective barrier. But the maid, like, they don't really have an issue. They can't obviously trigger pressure plates, so they don't trigger pressure plates, redstone, or tripwires, so consequently anything based on that is going to fail. Most cases I think that's a booby trap, but it might also be an automated door. But why would they make one when they can just walk straight through anyways? That's the next question. What I haven't implemented, at least as yet, is that under most circumstances it's like 50-50 as to whether any non-magical source of damage will hurt an incorporeal creature. Incorporeal creatures are very, very irritating to deal with in D&D, as they always are. But then, have you ever tried to fight a cloud? But there's the enchantment called Ghost Touch, which allows you to deal full normal damage to them. You can use force effects to affect them normally, but otherwise, pretty much everything has like a 50-50 of actually working. I haven't put that into the incorporeal type as yet, because it feels majorly busted, as I think some could expect. They can't obviously attack you whilst they're in the wall, but they also can't really be attacked whilst they're there. Moon quests! Hey, thank you. Good to see you still around. Maybe add some sort of strength debuff. We have to remember that the type system isn't... There's Origins, which shares a lot with the type system of Various Oddities, and then there's the type system of Various Oddities. And Origins is player-exclusive, full-blown creatures kind of thing, whereas the type system is more distinct elements that are added to everything. So I can't make them so specific as to say one incorporeal creature can't walk through wood and another creature can not walk through concrete or something. And if I add a debuff to the players that have incorporeal, then it will add that debuff to every single creature that has it as well. Thereby disrupting the game balance quite a bit more than is ideal. So I'm probably not going to be adding that, but pretty much nothing is going to start off incorporeal. So there's that. Like, it's powerful, sure, absolutely. So is being a fire dragon. Just saying. There's no real downsides to being a dragon, is there? It's just a bunch of health, isn't it? No real downside to the fire subtype either. You just don't take fire damage. You can just walk, just swim, indeed, through lava. So it's like, these aren't meant to have built-in weaknesses for the most part. They do have, in the case of super types most commonly, there are some weaknesses. But these aren't meant to be, like, perfectly balanced for being chucked onto a player, because a player, in addition, can be any combination of types they like. So, yeah, I'm not big on, I'm not big on building weaknesses into them under most cases. But yeah. If you want to nerf me, you could change fire immunity to fire damage. Like you deal fire damage? Or, I'm not following. Or I could just make it, like, only fire damage, not lava, but... Anyways. Let's see. Do we want to do that, or do we want to work some more on the pen? That you would deal fire damage. It's not actually a thing for most creatures. Let me have a look. Real quick. Let's see, subtype, fire. Let's have a look at all these creatures. So, certainly for the majority of them, it's going to be involved. But, yeah, we'll take the Pyro Hydra as just a given. We'll take the Red Dragons as a given as well. What about the Steam Mephit? What about the rest? Salamanders, I'm gonna take a yes on that. Just an idea for yeah, that's fine, that's fine. Let's see, fire giants, fire elementals. I think it'd be weird if they didn't. Brass dragons, Azers. So let's see, breath weapon of steam, which is fire damage. Once per hour, steam ever can surround itself with a plume of vapor, duplicating the effect of blur. Heals only if it is touching boiling water or is in a hot, humid area. Wouldn't that be interesting to try and code? So Mephits are minor elementals, essentially. They're not pure for the most part. They're not pure air, earth, water, that kind of thing, though they do exist. And they're just sort of like low-grade elementals, as it were. Rasts are real heckin' weird creatures. But they're from the elemental plane of fire, and they do not deal any kind of damage to any kind of fire damage. They will drain you of blood, which would be an interesting thing to implement. Fire giants, you know what a fire giant. What in God's name was that? That was a rast from the elemental plane of fire. Just, yep. Let's see, no, immunity, rock fire, yeah, no, nothing really unusual there. Spooky, yeah. When you go to different planes in D&D, you will find some very interesting creatures. Azers are, well, they're rock dudes that are on fire. So you would expect that there would be some fire here, but actually mostly they're just hot. So their unarmed attacks deal extra fire damage. 1 point of extra fire damage. It's it's not a lot. Suffice to say, there's a lot of fire type creatures that don't deal fire damage root. Flameo, hot man. Yes, indeed. So, anyways, let's go to the Goblin Wolves and see if we can alter this. So, one of the genetic features, a couple of the genetic features, actually, for the wargs and the wargs is that they are passive, according to one of their genes, and spooked by loud noises, according to another. Now, I think one of those is already already calculated, so let's see if I can find where that is called. Spookums, Leo. Yes, somewhere. Did I set it so that it's only in... I might have. Only in the wargs rather than the wargs. Warg spook. There you are. Yes, it's only in the wargs. But partially because I didn't want to add it to the wargs and then the big mount scale dogs like sit up and teleport to you in the middle of a thunderstorm. That's probably not convenient, to say the least. Although maybe that's just like more reason for people to actually try and like breed it out of them. But yes, there we are. Gene 5 is in fact checked to ensure that wargs with that particular gene cannot be spooked. However, no such thing is currently implemented for them to not attack things unprompted. And that's a little bit more complex. Now, whether this should also trigger based on whether or not the owner is hurt, I don't think so. If the owner is hurt, they should move to a defensive posture, because otherwise they're just sitting there in the middle of combat. But hurt by targets, maybe. Attacking things of their own volition, such as in the case of wargs, which makes them one of the more unruly things to ride. I want to check if all of that stuff is actually handled. Now, since this AI is loaded every single time that they're put together, whether that be from an unloaded chunk or from like being spawned, it's probably fine for us to just check the genes when the goals are registered, depending upon what order these things are done, because if their data manager isn't registered before their goals, then there won't be anything to actually check. So we'll do a test on that. We'll just check the register goals, we'll get the genetics, and see what we find. Let's see. Can I just grab the genetics as its own thing? I just need to check if the genetics actually, like, guesses what you have at any point. Let's see. Get genetics. Genetics does have a default value. It's kind of fine if it does get that, just get that default value. Okay, so let's just check that. Run it. Like that. Let's see, I think I didn't show off in that selection the Fauquois. I don't know exactly how that's pronounced. It's a very interesting name, suffice to say. But you encounter those on the elemental plane of fire, but they're also equally okay on the elemental plane of earth. The reason being that they're basically worms, except they're human-sized and they look like that. They burrow. If you encounter a cavern in the elemental plane of earth, it's probably been dug out by one of these guys. In which case, good luck. Baby. I don't think you can, like, tame them. They have an intelligence of 6, which is above an animal. Okay, getting genetics in goals 224. Seems to be exclusively 224, which means it got it before the entity data was loaded. So we do need to apply that part of the AI after the entity, after this part, the read additional, has actually been read through. Mostly sentient, almost. It's like, I'm trying to think. It's like a really well-trained Chihuahua, I guess, in terms of intelligence. Or most house cats. Or my brother. If it was slightly more intelligent, it might be a gym teacher. That kind of thing. Angie 2-year-old. Yeah, I could see that. A toddler, maybe. I don't think that version of Such an X is ever used. Let's have a look. It's used in work to make that. Okay. So essentially we're going to need another value in here that when it reads through what the genetics should be, it needs to, like, actually apply, or remove, rather, the different tasks for the AI. So, apply genetic AI. So, hurt by target if it's attacked first. Should we let it attack back? I feel like under most cases, yes. If the owner is hurt, then that might be another option. If the owner then, like, attacks something, that's owner hurt target goal, that would then mean that if you were attacked, they would sit there idly, but if you attacked something, then they wouldn't. The question here is, under what circumstances are these most likely to be actually useful? More intelligent than Kyo has in more intelligence than Kyo has in our 5e campaign. Kyo's Paladin has a 4 intelligence. 5e says all things above 3 intelligence are sentient. Yeah, 3 is like the absolute cap of the most intelligent animal. Animals don't have more than a 3 intelligence. They are usually magical beasts by that point. But your standard human commoner ostensibly has a 10 for everything. That's the baseline. Okay. We could make it abstracts. There's an idea. But then we'd have to define it both in there, whereas it'd be much easier to just make a list and register them, I think. So private list, goal, I guess. Oh, we need a map. A private map of goals to integer values of their priority. So, goal to integer. And this would be genetic behaviors, I guess. Oh, new hash map. Okay. Yep. Fine. Alright. Probably... I'm trying to think, because we probably need to check for state. If we presume that spooking is handled by itself, then the only thing that we have to worry about now is passive behaviors. So let's call it aggressive. A list of tuples would also suffice. So actually, yeah, a list of tuples is probably about as much as we need. It would help if I wrote tuple instead of type. There. Okay. And let's add ourselves a function down here. Add genetic AI. We need a goal. And an integer. Priority. Okay. So, step 1, remove all of them. Okay, so we want to remove any if we're one particular direction and add them if we are in the other. So boolean would equal passive, I guess. So we want get genetics dot get, or gene rather. I believe it's 6. It's either 6 or 4. It's 4. Okay. Okay, and our goal in this case so if aggressive, then this dot target selector add goal behavior get B and goal. Helps if you can spell. There we go. Now, on the face of it, that would work just fine, except that there is going to be points where set genetics and such gets called, where these things have already been loaded in or removed, that kind of thing, in which case we're not doing anything, but we are potentially adding in a duplicate of the same goal. Hence, we need to always actually remove them. So we need a little thing up here that only removes them all. And then, if they're aggressive, we add them back in. So clear aggressive behaviors. And then apply aggressive behaviors if not passive. In which case, we'll just condense that down to there. Okay. So, everything boils down to here, so let's say apply genetic AI. Alright. Now I think all of our warg friends in the testing world are currently aggressive, but we can find out. Also, we don't currently have any genetic AI to speak of whatsoever. But over here, we can add most of it. So, this.add genetic, call it a free, and we're going to say new nearest attackable target goal. Let's go with cow entity for the time being. What's the value I'm looking for here? Check site? Absolutely, I think. Okay, that will cause any wargs to attack nearby cows. I'm gonna say wargs will attack chickens if they are aggressive. Okay. They'll still have their attack behaviors one way or the other, it's just a matter of whether they have the genes to say that they should or shouldn't do these other things. So now, I take my first break. Because I've been talking basically non-stop for an hour here. And when we come back, we will see if our wargs and our wergs and such respond appropriately to their genetics. So, catch you about 10 minutes. Welcome back, everybody, and thank you very much for that raid that just came in. So just before we left off there, we were working on some of the genetic properties of our wargs and our wargs, our collective goblin wolves, as they are, and one of the things we're trying to get working is that there is a gene inside of them that you can breed that mutates and turns on and can be bred into other wargs and wargs that basically makes them stop attacking things on their own. Which is kind of helpful, because considering that most of the things that they eat are livestock. They'll still attack things that attack you, they'll still attack things you attack, but we want to make sure that they don't try to eat your livestock all the time. So, in the case of wargs, there's currently chickens. In the case of wargs, that is a lot of things. Cows, llamas, pigs, and sheep. And we have a system here that should hopefully work, but we're gonna find out. Just gonna finish putting all these in. Helps if you can spell. There we go. Just in the break there, I was checking why exactly Carlbot, or Slow Milkling on the Discord server, has not been announcing a whole ton of stuff lately. Can't seem to find it. Anyways, wargs should attack chickens. They are currently our major test case, so we'll go into the test world and see if anybody has the gene for this particular thing. And that is purely based on booleans, so I get to just check through that. There you are. So 0, 1, 2, 4, right sheets. 1, 2, 4, 8, I believe, is the numbers. And that is floppy ear, other floppy ear, short snout, tongue, passive is the one that we are mostly interested in, and spooked. And then there's 2 genes for wargs. If these are both recessive genes, if the warg genes are turned off in a warg, then it is actually a warg, which means it should spawn as a completely different entity. Well, not completely different, but pretty different. And that should add to, yep, 255, good. Right. See what we can get going. Yeah? Who's nice? Ah, hello. Hello, Sugar Cube. How you doing? Here we go. If anyone hasn't seen Sugar Cube, there we are. There's the Ghastling pet that we have already used. Where are my... Okay, literally every single one of my wargs, apparently, has despawned. There was a problem with the data, most probably. Let's have a look. There's a null here somewhere. Yep. So inside of the actual adding one. Tiny? Oh yes, they're also aggressive. They will start shooting at things. Although, in the most recent version, they don't set houses on fire. Which might have been a problem on the patron server at one point. Okay, so why was aggressive behaviors null? That is impossible. Because it starts initialized. What was the problem? Do you remember the barn burning down, Booked? That was caused by a ghastling. It's not... It's not that it's... Okay, Entity Warg, register goals. Add genetic AI. Which then goes to aggressive behaviors, which should already be set. But only about 10% paying attention. Ah, yes. Those castlings so much fire. Yes, they don't set fires anymore. They also don't destroy blocks. but they will set things that they hit on fire. Yeah, Gasling's got a significant nerf fairly recently. Alternatively, I can make that final and just declare it up here. In which case it should definitely be there. Well, let's keep it there for now and see if that... I don't think that'll bring back our wargs there, but yeah. Hope springs eternal. Nope. Okay, so we no longer have Astoria, Capuchin, and was it Erebus and Les Enfants? I gave those wargs some really interesting names, that's for sure. Okay, let's have you right here. Grab some bones. There you go. Okay. So, new warg, who dis? Now you should not have the gene for passivity, which means if I put a chicken around, you'll eat them. So, there we go. Chicken. On your marks. Okay, you came back to me because I'm your owner. If I'm over here by the chicken, you gonna murder this? Apparently not. Okay, we got a bug to fix, everybody. Big doggo. Yes. Big rescue doggo as well. Okay, do you have attack melee? You should have. You don't. Okay. Right, that's the problem. You're angry, but you don't know how to fuel, you don't know how to channel that anger. Pathfinder's be closest as you can, but doesn't seem willing to munch. Yeah, because it doesn't have the behavior of deciding to attack something is entirely detached from the behavior that says how to attack something. So, gotta put that in. Let's see. Leap at targets? Don't think so. Yeah, no, actually, that looks like it might be. Is that wolf exclusive? No, it does not. Okay. Set motion. This doesn't call a super, which means it's the only task that wolves have. There's melee. Okay. And sure, let's put leap in. Why not? Why not? We'll put melee attack into both via abstract goblin wolf. And then we'll put leap attack into wargs exclusively. Because I feel like wargs can be ridden. So being on the back of a warg as it's like leaping around might get a bit nauseous. What do you mean? They're friends. Don't make them kill each other. I'm not making them do anything. They're deciding to do. So essentially the code is saying get close to the chicken, but not and then eat it. It's not even saying get close to the chicken. It's saying the chicken is important for some reason. It's saying the chicken has to die. It's declaring the maxim that the chicken must die. But it's not actually saying by what means. Or even who should do it, essentially. But don't worry, once we kill a chicken, we will then be genetically modifying this warg to no longer hate the chicken. Okay, so if I bring you over here. Okay, this suggests that the AI is not getting lidded in. So let's see. Set genetics. I mean, I guess it does get called there. It gets called in the read, and it gets called in the initial, when they're spawned. What did I just hear? It's not like something fell over there for a second. Probably fine. Walk into chicken in hopes of shoving it into lava. Maybe. Okay, let's stick assist out. Bright side, having only the one warg does make it a much easier time of seeing who's doing what in the console here. So ostensibly, any call to set genetics causes this to work. But it might be that it's being set by a means that's causing that to be bypassed. Okay. So according to code here, it managed it. Applying genetic AI, adding aggressive AI. So this warg ostensibly is aggressive. But nothing happens. Which suggests to me that this list is empty. In which case, when I boot it up again, we should see this line and this line in the console, but none of this. Whereas if it is getting actually applied and for just whatever reason isn't working, then it's another matter. I am very happy that we got Incorporeal working and that we've got various equipment on the cusp of working. Because it means that after a certain point, I can just, like, go ham on adding new creatures. Oh, you had me going for a second there, mate. You had me in the first half, I ain't gonna lie. Okay. What do we see? What do we see? Applying genetic AI, adding aggressive AI. No mention of behaviors being added, which means this list is empty. The code doesn't even know what to do when it loads aggressive behavior. Yeah. For some reason, this is empty. Which it should not. It should not be. So... I'm gonna add an abstract in here. An abstract is basically a function that every descendant class must use, must create. And in the case of the warg, that is to add these genetic AIs. Which should then mean... don't need that there, firstly. Just gonna refactor and rename that a little bit because it is... It's kind of... there's procedures in how things are named, essentially. There's a fairly rigorous naming scheme involved. Okay. So now, especially if we go to the warg. Instead of generating these at the point of register goals, we're gonna call them there. And in abstract goblin wolf, we're going to add ourselves a special thing here to apply genetics. Oh, like sweet. Should be fine. Should be fine. There. So when they're finished loading up all of their other AI, they'll load up their genetic AI, and then when they get read from memory or whatever, they'll set their genetics, which will then alter their genetic AI, and if there's somehow nothing there, they'll add all the stuff that needs to be there to it. Okay. Right, that should now mean there is definitely something there, that should then mean that we actually see something happen. By which I mean a chicken should die. One of the two. Now, as regards to the types, it's kind of become a very popular feature of various oddities. It's almost like the showcase kind of thing. To the point that basically every single person on my Patreon server has customized types. No one is just playing as a dull old humanoid. We have a plant, we have a construct, we have several outsiders, many fae, a couple of people we're playing with the air subtype so they get free flight. One person, I believe, who I think is in the chat, is playing with the aquatic subtype, which means that they cannot breathe air, which is going to be entertaining this Sunday because we have the end fight on that server. But it was like the Origins mod makes you invulnerable when you first spawn into a world, and then has you pick what creature hybrid thing you are. It was suggested that maybe I should do something similar for the creature type, so I just have a boolean or such in the I just have like a boolean inside of the config, and if that boolean is set to true, then when you first load into a world, you decide what your types are. And maybe that would be like drawing like a hand out of a deck of cards. Like it gives you a list of randoms generated by the world, and you pick which one sounds the most the most fun and the least terrifying to you from that. Or maybe you just get to like pick completely by like writ, whatever you want to be. Because it's the world that controls what you actually are. No longer, it's not the config anymore, so... And my dog's gone. Good start. Same problem? Some kind of null. Because somehow that doesn't exist. I like creature types more than Origins because it's more modular. It is a lot more modular. But conversely, I can't even tell you how many potential combinations of types there are. It's like... it's in the thousands, at least. But conversely, unlike Origins, you don't really have any activated abilities, it's all passives. It's all, like, generic properties. You don't have any special abilities like hurling an ender pearl or delivering poison, that kind of thing. That'll probably be coming down later on. Okay, let's make sure that that cannot be null. Because apparently that is a few times over. Shouldn't be, but apparently is, because my wolves keep going away for the same reason. There are enough different ones that you think it's in the several millions, yeah. There are some limitations. Under ordinary circumstances, amphibious can't be applied to non-aquatics, and native can't be applied to non-outsiders. But for the most part, anything can be combined with anything. There's not even a strict mandate that you have to have a super type. You like Origins because it's concrete and defined, but it leaves me wishing I was able to tweak the abilities to your liking. You technically can, because they're controlled by data packs, which is how the slime origin add-on works. Origins is a little hard to parse the code of, and I have done a fair bit of that to figure out how it does things. But there's no real equivalent of it that I'm aware of in Forge, which Various Oddities is, which is another bonus for us. But you can use data packs to create custom origins in that. But with Various Oddities, you don't have to, because whilst everything is hard-coded, it's combinable in whatever fashion you like. Okay, we need a new doggo. A new different doggo than that. Wait, am I too close to the... No, I'm not. Okay. Just had to make sure I wasn't too close to the goblins, because they would render this warg untamable. Oh, you're a happy doggo. Okay. Come over here and murder this chicken for me. Hooray! Murder! Okay, come over here and let me genetically modify you. Now, I believe that your genetic value should just be 224. Am I correct in that? Genes, 0. Okay. If your gene value is 0... Okay, that would still make you aggressive. You just theoretically would be a warg in that case. Okay, yeah, down the line, I'm going to be adding more, so in addition to your creature types, there'll be a set of abilities, both passive and activated, and that'll be the point where you start to get less from the broad strokes of the tree of life, I guess, in D&D, and more to the specific, species. And maybe then I'll have figured out data packs so you can actually, have a data pack that says this is what a Gorgon is, that kind of thing. This is what a zombie is, that sort of thing. Okay. So, 224 is our default, which I believe is just that. Yep. So we want to turn that on, which means the new value that we want is 240. So we do that. Our warg has now been genetically modified and should no longer murder chickens. Yep, now they're friends. But if I set you back to 224... Yep. Hooray! Genetic AI, now functional. Pay no attention to the bouncing cubes, that's a rendering glitch for related settlements. Currently play as a Fey Aberration Shape Changer. Interesting combination. It is unusual to have more than 2 super types. In fact, in D&D it's impossible. but I intentionally didn't code a limit like that into various oddities' type system because I wanted to make sure that people could play however way they wanted, and if they have some kind of strange lore explanation for why they're an undead construct or something, then yeah. It is less for me to it is less for me to say why, so much as say why not. They were friends? They were roommates. Oh god, they were roommates. Okay, so the addendum thing here is that wargs, when they kill things, eat them. Pretty much whole. So when a goblin wolf of any kind kills a thing, if it's in like their list of aggressive, if they are of the aggressive thing, then it should mean that they regain a bit of health. It's kind of important in terms of them in terms of like them just like regaining health, not like passively. So how do I want to do that? Wasn't it? There's too much special there. Okay, prey hunting done. Got that going. Genetic behavior features done. Saddles, chests, and the sit command for wargs. We've barely touched wargs. Wargs do have the same genetics as wargs, so you can have a warg with a lolling tongue out the side of its jaw, or a short snoot, that kind of thing. I haven't gone so far as to say that if they have a short snout, then their stamina is lower because they have breathing difficulties, but it's meant to be emblematic of that same property in dogs, so just putting that out there. Okay. If we go to VOBus server, then when a creature dies, we can cause other things to happen. So at subscribe events, public static void on goblin wolf kill event. Much the same fashion as how the goblin refractory period is decreased. And we just want to check if the cause of the damage was an instance of abstract goblin wolf. Okay. Then, cause.getTrueSource.heal. Let's see, how much do I want to say? Like, a couple of hearts? A random value like that? Get the victim's RNG, say next float times, let's see, 3F. And I'll say 2F. So between a full heart and a heart and 2.5 hearts. Okay, that should work. So now, whenever our warg eats a chicken, it should be healed a little bit. So there's two negatives to this next test. The first is we have to kill another chicken. The second is, in order to know if it's regained health, I need to hurt it first. So apologies for that in advance. What we can also do is add a similar behavior to foxes so that wargs and wargs will actually eat whatever item they're holding in their mouth, if it's an edible. If it's an edible, there's a sentence. Okay. In the name of science, yes. Fortunately, wargs and wargs have a lot of health. In fact, we can just check exactly how much health they have. Health is 30. For this doggo. This doggo alone has 30 health. So it should be able to take a swing from a diamond sword. Or a netherite sword. Okay. Anyone who does not like the sound of dogs being injured, you may wish to plug your ears or mute the stream now. I will like start waving frantically when it's done, okay? Just letting you know. But if so, do so and now. Welcome back. Okay. Health is now 19.352001F. Health is measured as a float rather than the discrete integers you might guess from the health bar. So now... Apologies. Have a chicken. Now the health is 23.18F. Okay, so I just feed you a bunch of chickens. Back to full. Hooray. Technically it should also like prevent, it should also just like, get rid of the drops there, but we don't want to be too mean to that. Okay, so... Right, yes, let's make the goblin wolves eat whatever's in their head, whatever's in their, technically speaking it's their main hand, but it's rendered as their mouths. And I think there's a little bit of a error in how that's rendered, but I can fix that later. Just add that to my list. Yeah. It's a little off base is the problem. Okay. Don't need that. Don't need that. Also don't need this, actually. Just need that. So, if you didn't know, when foxes are holding a food item, they will occasionally eat it. Let's see, there's find items, eat berries. There you are, I think. Nope, that's moved to block, never mind. Let's see, nearest attackable, nearest attackable. This is an entertaining sentence to read. Target dry baby. Avoid, 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 follow, pounce, find shelter, bite, sleep, follow, stroll, eat berries, leap a target, avoid wrecking, find items, watch, sit and look, revenge. There should be... Aha, there we are. It's not an AI task at all. It's actually just part of their living tech. Ugh. Interesting. Okay. So if we just we can just pretty much drop that entire code right into their living tech. No problem there at all. Yes, dry baby. Is that a T-Boy reference? If it is, I don't know. Okay, I'm just gonna drag this over here. fairly straightforward stuff, this. Just a matter of, like, eating the thing, asking what happens, like, what's kind of, item does it become once it's eaten? Which for most things is a smaller stack or nothing, but... for other things, not so much. And this is mostly to just play a sound. And show some particles for it. If I've had a rare chance to turn it into a bone, that's an idea. Not everything should have bones, though. Also, if you eat if it ate, like, a salmon, and that turned into, like, the same bone that you get from a skeleton, that might be a bit odd. Okay, so, if their health is below their max, and... There's a fault. They'll eat the food, but they won't necessarily heal from it. So I need to know from them eating it what exactly is the benefit. Because if the idea is to feed them, then if the idea is to give them food so that they will actually like heal from it, then it's probably worth them actually healing from it. So, let's see, saturation or healing? Healing makes the most sense, I think. There. That'll actually heal when they do that. The only question is... do foxes have a handling specifically in their handle status update? Or... yeah, if it's at 45, then yeah. So I need to clone that as well. Entity status updates, as you can tell from this, are a complete mess in Minecraft. But oh well. But I should be able to get this going just in time for my next break. Or the more you learn about mods, the more you realize Minecraft is held together with a ribbon and a wish. Ribbon is being generous. I'm not even sure if there's a wish involved. Should all be fine. And don't need the brackets if it's the only thing that gets executed. Okay. Now you can't give them bones unless they're a child, unless they're a child or in their refractory. But we can give them all sorts of food, so we'll give them some of the chicken that they dropped, for instance. Created a whole ton of chicken on the ground. Might as well put it to use feeding them. Which means they get healed, and they get healed both times. They kill the chicken, they get some food, and when they have the food, they also heal. Me, when a fabric mod pack you are working on turned kelp into color-changing glazed terracotta that grows. Huh. There you go. Munch. Actually, you won't munch because you're at full health, so... I'm just gonna data that down. Hang on. Yeah, you can see where the held item is a little off there. Modify you to have a health of, let's say 15F. So in little bits, hopefully. 600 ticks is equal to 30 seconds? Oh, I forgot there was a small army of foxes over here for now currently no reason. Whoop. Jeez, you spooked me there. That was so loud in my ears. Okay, so we set them to 15. And they are currently at... I don't know, but they should be in here somewhere. Currently at 17. Okay. Yep, raw chicken gave you a little bit of a tummy ache. Health is now at 19, so they're gradually eating the raw chicken, and it's actually they're actually getting their hunger, their health back. Give them the cooked chicken on the other hand. It should go up a lot faster. So currently it is at 19. Now it is at 25. Grand! The quality of food affects the healing. Good, good, good. Yeah, needs some work. Needs some work. But we're working on it, so it's fine. Where's... Ah, there's Sugar Cube. If anyone's wondering, Sugar Cube and Overgas links are available in the current version of the mod. You just need to basically get the Return to Sender achievement, and it will occasionally spawn some gas links. They are tamed using sugar. Oh dear. Yeah, that was gonna happen. Goblins self-breed. Okay, so we have full health now? Yeah, good boy. Okay. What's the next thing I try to work out tonight? I guess... Oh, starting on wargs is gonna be a real headache. Correcting the rendering of the held item is going to also be a real headache. Settlement room rendering, I don't know that I can do because I suck at graphics. It very famously nearly cost me my university degree, how bad I am at graphics. Are gaslings still capable of burning down barns? No! They got nerfed. But I don't know if... I don't think that version is on the server currently. I'm waiting a little bit to see if any massive errors pop out of version J. So something I did get an idea for is type metadata. So when you, for instance, /give yourself an item, it used to be that you had an NPT data thing at the end, but now you just tack it on right at the end of the name. And that allows you to set the NPT data, which is curly brackets. If we had something similar for creature types, then we could actually set creature by creature specific information. So, for instance, there is the augmented subtype right here, and that ostensibly should be paired with a super type, because when you have the augmented subtype, it's because you've been turned from your original super type into something else. There are two major examples of this in D&D like vanilla. The first and most obvious is when you awaken an animal, it is turned into a magical beast augmented animal. Perhaps an example more salient for most of the people in the chat tonight is vampires are a form of undead augmented humanoid. Currently, because types are there or not and perfectly static, they don't have the capacity to know what you were originally. But if we had the augmented type, then we could actually alter that. So, but to do that, we would need to have we would need to change we need to change the storage of types from purely just a list of the types to actually being a pair of the types and NBT data, which is not impossible, but it's a bit of a headache, suffice it to say. Particularly because we currently reference what is what by virtue of its creature type, not its NBT data. So, yeah, that... The cache would be fairly easy. Everything else, not so much. Next question, I guess, is how many things do we expect to even use NBT data? In which case, if it's a short list, then we could just have a separate registry of creature to creature type and NBT data of it. So it would be not unlike this cache here. Any transformations found in the Grim Hollow campaign and player guide would also be augmented. I haven't the foggiest, because I've never heard of that. But maybe. Would it be possible to stick a note on the player file that stores type history? Kind of, but not everybody wants to be remotely associated with what they necessarily were when they spawned in. Currently, by default, players are humanoid, and that's it, which confers no special effects or bonuses or such. But some people would prefer not to have ever been considered to be humanoid, for instance. Which is a similar problem with calculating what is and is not extraplanar or native. Because in order to know that, I need to know what their home dimension is, which is not necessarily represented by what dimension they spawned in. For instance, Blaze are, generally speaking, from the Nether. Okay, any Blaze that we detect spawning probably came from the Nether. We just have a value in its living data that is only set when it initially spawns and never again. Endermen spawn in every dimension, but they are ostensibly, according to the lore, as it were, native to the end. But an Enderman that spawns in the end, under this logic, would be set to have a native dimension of the end, whereas an Enderman that spawns in the overworld would be set to have a native dimension of the overworld. Skeletons also turn up in the Nether, but they also show up in the overworld. So are they native to the overworld, or are they native to the end, to the Nether? It's tricky in that fashion, and the only real way to know for sure is to have a registry of where everything comes from. And I guess we could kind of go for a mid-ground, where we have a registry of things that are set to be from specific dimensions, but anything that's not in that registry is considered to be from whatever dimension it first spawned in, personally. Which would be more miss than hit in larger mod packs, but as a rule, it's fairly uncommon for mods to add creatures that show up in more than one dimension, so I guess that wouldn't necessarily be a problem, so to speak. But we'll talk about that more in 10 minutes, and I'll be after I come back from my break. So go grab yourselves a snack, everybody. Welcome back, everybody, to the final hour of our evening, and we're gonna try for something a little experimental, to say the least. We're gonna try and implement detection of your spawn dimension. Now this is easy enough for players, because it's pretty much always the overworld, but we're gonna see if we can't, in fact, get ourselves something a little bit more specific. So we need a resource location of origin dimension, which we will initialize as null, and then inside of our tick over here, we're not doing any special bits there, so we can just put this above. If this dot origin dimension equals null, then this dot origin dimension equals entity get world dimension type, I think. Yes. Can I get the ID or suffix or something? There should be a resource location in here somewhere I can grab. Or not, apparently. Oh, well, get effects is a resource location. Curious. Let's have a look at that. Oh, which is also client side, which doesn't help me terribly much. No, that doesn't actually appear to be anything here. Interesting. So what is... I'm not exactly sure how that's handled, but it's not so not what I'm looking for. Overworld type, which is a dimension type. Okay, can I get a name for it, please? Get or create key from the registry key. Okay. I need to get the location out of the registry key. ToString, get location, there we go. That's what I'm looking for. There. Okay. And let's store that in our data. There we are. Serialize and deserialize. So compound, put string, home plane, I guess, or home dim. It makes a bit more sense here. Origin dimension, ToString. Yep, nope. This origin dimension does not equal null. There. And up here, if MBT contains home dim, type, I believe it's an 8, but let's find out. This dot origin dimension equals new resource location. MBT get string home dim. Okay, so that now means that when the creature first spawns, it gets its living data attached. The first time it ticks, it will set that origin dimension value, and that will never change. From there, with the types manager, whenever we get the types, we can check to see if the world that they are currently in matches the dimension of their origin dimension string, in which case we can determine if they are extraplanar or if they are native. And later on, we can add a thing to the config that is like a directory, essentially, of creatures to their dimensions, or dimensions to their creatures, one way or the other. Probably the other, come to think of it, because that would save us a lot more time than every single creature. Ooh. But okay. I just need to check if that is indeed a 3 or an 8. String MBT is an ID value of 8. Wait, did I have that right? I had that right! Hey, I guessed it! Hooray for me. Okay, so public resource location gets home dimension return. Okay. Types manager, whenever you get the types. Let's see, we go from there to there. Here's the big one that does all the useful things. We are going to tack on to the types get entity types event, which was added fairly recently, which basically means that if there is a special effect active upon you, then we can alter what you appear to be. For instance, if you are shape changed. If you are currently a frog, for instance, we can change your types to just be animal, augmented humanoid, or whatever. So, for that we need Theobus server. So public static void apply native extraplanar to let's see, types get entity types event. I think it's what I called it. Nope. Type get. There we go. Okay. So we need a living entity. And then we need to get the living data of that entity. Okay, if entity dot, well, if data dot get home dimension does not equal null, then event dot, yep, get type's good. We need to know what world we're in. So resource location, current dim equals entity dot get world get dimension key and get location. Okay, if current dim equals data get home dimension, then events types add enum creature type dot native. We are from here. Otherwise, event get types add enum creature type extraplanar, because we're not from there. Okay. Now we should have a special thing in here to say add or remove, just so that we can actually ensure we don't have a duplicate, because duplicates are bad. And probably helps to have a same one in the other way. Give it a second. I don't think that's currently used pretty much anywhere, but yeah, it can take a while. So if you already have the extra planar type because it's been hard-coded into you by the type system, then you'll still have it, it won't remove it. But if you don't have it already, then it'll check the other things. We should probably check if native or extra planar is in your default types before we alter them. Because you shouldn't be able to have native and extra planar simultaneously. That makes no sense. So if the types do not contain extra planar already, somehow. That would feel weird. Yeah, I imagine that would be uncomfortable, to say the least. Okay, so if you're in your home dimension and you're not marked as extra planar already, then you are set to being native. If you are not in your home dimension and you're not already set by hard coding to be native, then you're extra planar. Okay. And all of that should be good to go. Okay. So now when we run the get event, we should be able to just see, we should see the native type applied to basically everything in our test world. Because wargs aren't typed to be either of those things. Schrodinger's place of origin. Yeah, that sounds about right. If you're native and extra planar in the Never, are you both living and alive? Are you both dead and alive? I cannot remember if the types command shows us just the hard-coded ones. Well, guess I'll find out. So let's see. Types, list, targets, dev. Okay, native, because this is the dimension that it thinks I'm from. Grand. Let's hop to another world, because I don't want anybody here to despawn. And then we can go into the Nether and see if it still thinks I'm native or extra planar. Okay. I wish just being able to type 1, but oh well. Yeah, that's a bug I need to fix as well. I'll put that in my list. Those should just be world specifics. I don't know how that's happening. Okay. Types, list, target, dev. Currently registered as native here. Oh. I found a bug, everybody! Oh. Right. We can't go through the portal. And we can't... Oh, okay. That is a bug. Huh. Okay, so... Enum creature type. Now, here's the question. Does everybody who writes a portal block extend from portal block? Or do I need to get funky? think I just need to change that. So if the collision doesn't exist or it's empty, then by definition we don't have to worry about it anyway, so whether we phase through it or not is irrelevant. Makes sense with it detecting a transparent block as a full block, it comes to blindness. Not quite. What it's actually detecting for whether or not you can phase, which is what triggers the blindness effect, is whether or not the block that you're standing in is a block that you can pass through and has a collision box. Now, because it was defaulting to true when it had no collision box, because it didn't matter at that point, it was detecting the portal block as something you could phase through, hence it wasn't activating any of the behaviors that happen when you're inside of that block. So now it should teleport us virtually immediately. Hopefully. Nope. Okay, yeah, we have a problem. What could be causing that, I wonder? Let's see. Let's take a look at the portal block for real quick. So the Nether portal. Hardness and resistance is less than 0, so it should be registering as not phasable. And yet, here we are. So it's gotta be part of the mix into abstract block state and block, causing the whole thing to fail. I don't think it's fall or walk. Let's take a look at block. Oh, it's a Nether portal block. So, on entity collision. Yeah. Entity collision is... Let's see... Yeah, right here. This is the line that prevents you from triggering pressure plates. Now, I'm pretty sure pressure plates have a hitbox. Or a collision box. Is it all portals or just Nether? Can you go to the end? Well, we can find out. I'm pretty sure it's going to be all of them, though. So I'll take a wild guess that that's the same thing. Yep. It's the exact same one. It's on entity collision. And they also do not extend out of the same place, so I can't just say the same thing. Oh, and this is gonna be a pain to set up because end portals had to be built in an exact specific way. Oh, I didn't expect this would be a bug I'd encounter. But in hindsight, that makes a lot of sense. Now let me see if I remember how to do this. Hooray! I'm deaf now, but still. I'm fairly certain this won't work either. Yeah, incorporeal creatures are stuck wherever they spawn. Okay, well, glad we found that out. I'll have to add that as a known bug to the current to version J. Well, I was about to say I expect incorporeal to be, like, used relatively minimally. Then I remembered that as soon as I implemented air being able to fly, like, 5 people jumped on it on the patron server. So, yeah, that might not be the case. if I've just implemented a type that can no clip. Okay. Let's see. We need to go to the block mixin and say, can we phase through this block. In which case, that alone should stop it, but then that should also stop it. Hopefully. We do have a block position, we do have a world, so we should be able to say. Okay. Now, if I remember correctly, this does check. Yes, if you're of the incorporeal type, good. Later on, we can maybe expand that a bit to have it be an actual, like, qualifier. Like, currently, originally actions only constituted eat, breathe, and sleep. Then it got expanded to eat, sleep, breathe air, breathe water, and most recently, we also added regeneration to that, natural health regen. So hopefully, like later on, if we had other subtypes and whatnot that can phase, we can just add that as an action. But that's unlikely, because to my knowledge, incorporeals are the only ones that can. Maybe it would be possible to make it so incorporeals activate portals by occupying the same space as the portal block. The trouble is identifying what is a portal block, because if we look at Nether portal block here, this is just a nothing otherwise special about it. Conversely, end portal block is a container block, which is a whole other like layer down on the hierarchy. And what that means is there's no real way to distinguish that the two are portals at all. There's no property shared between them. The only thing that happens that actually makes them to be a portal is this, the on-entity collision. There's no special property, there's no special interface that they have. It's just that both of them do a similar thing on entity collision. And on entity collision, we stopped because it made us trigger pressure plates as incorporeal creatures. So, yeah. Personally, you'd rather a high jump and then float rather than full flight. You're using air for the time being. There's not really a midway ground there. All air types have a fly speed and it's usually perfect, so that equates to creative flight. And to make modern integrations impossible indeed. So we're now just kind of going to rely on the notion that everyone that makes a portal block, a block that is to say that teleports you when you stand in it, is going to make that block itself indestructible. Or not have a collision shape. So hopefully that is the case. But for now, let's just hope that we've actually gotten it to work for vanilla portals, which is the only constant that we can think of. Okay, let me just see if I've broken anything first. Yes, I have, because we can now trigger pressure plates. We can't trigger. We're not triggering that because that's triggered by on walk on, which is a different thing. Can I trample crops? No. Okay. But pressure plates. So our options are essentially: do we want to not trigger pressure plates and be able to use portals, or not be able to use portals and not trigger pressure plates? Oh, that's gonna be a head scratcher for a bit. But can, like, the main thing here, slash types, list, target dev, currently rendered as native. Neat. Now registered as extraplanar. Great, that works. And I can also walk through, like, most of this. Now, I think I mentioned... Yeah, you can walk through anything as long as it has an open side, whether that side be air or anything else that doesn't have a hitbox. But... God, you're loud. Let me just turn down block sounds here. There. You can walk through anything in this version. So that includes, for instance, barriers, and the end portal frame, and bedrock. Anything that would ordinarily be indestructible, you can still walk through. That was a limitation that hadn't come to mind when I initially implemented incorporeality, but it is one that has been fixed in this dev space, so it is going to be in the next version. But okay. We have successfully added detection of original spawn dimension. So the next thing we can do is add a variant to types, the /types command, to allow us to actually alter what that value is after initial spawn. Particularly for players and such. Just fairly straightforward. Ish, more or less, kind of. We will need a directory later on, but for the moment we'll just go with players and just have it write directly to their living data. For mobs it's a bit more complicated. Or we can just have it be target entity. Maybe give them a keybind to make them corporeal, or they can right-click on blocks to activate them. You can right-click on blocks to activate them. That's not interfered with. But you can you can interact with buttons, no problem. Okay, we need a target. In this case, we're gonna go for... Let's see, entity? No, that's the wrong one. Mob, there you are. There's being right-click a portal to go through it. Aye, that opens up all manner of worms. Also, there's no way for me to call that code. On-entity collision is a whole different thing, and it's, like, to do that with a never portal, like, doing it with like, an end portal would be reasonable enough, but with a never portal, it takes time, so you would have to be spam right-clicking. I'm not even sure if that would suffice. So, I should probably have, like, the vision obfuscation change according to that as well. Right now it's fine. Executes? What am I thinking of? Yeah, dot executes. Okay, let's start by just letting it tell us exactly what it is that it did. So just tell us what the thing is. So executes variant origin. Let's see, return home plane. That's just our initial thing. Then new argument. Destination, I guess? Yeah. And that would execute changing what the destination is. Keep to make the ghost corporeal will be their option. Again, that's getting into activated abilities, and that's not something that we currently have set up for at all. Okay, we need entity and a command source. That should be string argument, maybe? For right now, at least. Okay. Don't think I can get this part done right now. The command system for Minecraft got severely hacked over between 1.12 and 1.16, but once you get the hang of it, it's vaguely useful. At least it auto generates what its like suggestions and fills should be. So there's that at least. Okay. Okay. So if entity in instance of a living entity living data equals source send feedback, new string text command will do for the hot minute. So now we should just be able to run that command. If we don't give it a destination, then it should just give us where we're from. Yeah, activated abilities like a breath weapon or a spell-like ability or something like that will be down the road, but they are not really the kind of thing that the types system is meant to do. Incorporeal is a thing that you are, not a thing you can be, essentially. Okay, so slash, types, origin, targets, div, home dimension, overworld. Hooray! If we hop in here and spawn anything, more or less. Let's just summon a villager, for instance. Okay. Slash types, origin, targets, you. Home dimension, the Never, because that's where you first spawned. Not where you actually should come from, but it's fine. Lord, that's noisy. Okay. So I obviously need to figure out a way to not trigger pressure plates, but also allow for portal usage. Why is there a man in hell? Because I put them there. They were terrible. Do you know what they do you know what they were in real life? They were a police officer, Dusty. A police officer. Imagine that. Anyways. So we are now able to detect where every entity comes from, hence we can determine what our types are. So if I pushed that villager back into here, if I push that villager through the portal, which I don't know if I can because he has no AI. So let me see. Data, modify, entity, that one. No AI, set value 0B. Very helpful, thank you. Ghost triggering redstone contraptions will be like ghost hunters using devices to find ghosts. You're not wrong. Okay. Do me a favor and stop moving. Or I guess I can just... There. Okay. Now you should have had pre-existing data. So, things... Which is how villagers and such retain their trades if you'd walk them through the Nether, which is kind of a big deal. So types, origin, targets... That one still says the Never. Perfect. Okay. Ha. So therefore, if I try and get your types, you should say extra planar. Yes! Hurrah! Very good. Very good. Okay, so I need a config that will actually like define defaults. If there's not one there, then they'll go for we'll go with whatever dimension they spawn in. And obviously this can be overridden by just hard coding giving you the native or extra planar subtype, but that means that subtype, well, those two subtypes in fact, are now applied like contextually. Hooray! So we just need to set up actually like alternates for people who would prefer not to be natives of the overworld, for instance. I know there's at least one person in chat who'd prefer to be native to the end, and at least one that would like to be native to the Nether. Though I think they already have the extra planar types just in them. Now bear in mind, native and extra planar, for the most part, are do-nothing subtypes at the moment. Extra planar literally does nothing, it's just a tab. But native affects how outsiders work, it's specific to the outsider type. But that means later on that we'll be able to do things to people who are in a different dimension than their home origin. For instance, the banishment spell will send you back to your home dimension. That kind of thing. We could theoretically alter your spawn points based on that, but I don't know that we necessarily want to do that, because that could cause all manner of hiccups. Like, someone who is from the Nether might prefer not necessarily to respawn in the Nether. Wonder if it would be possible to set home dimension to nan or unknown. If we set it to blank, then you will always register as extraplanar. If we then modified your spawn point, we would also have to check if we could even identify it, and if we can't, just presume the overworld. Imagine getting banished and having to defeat the dragon yourself. I mean, that's one way to go back. I'm pretty sure, like, banish is a fairly high level spell, but there's also, like, a temp banishment that sort of, like, shunts you back and then, like, yo-yos you back when it runs out of time. So you would just be, like, fleeing from the dragon for a few seconds. Which sounds like fun, honestly. That sounds like a good time. But, anyways, from Spectral Steve here, that is all that I got time for tonight. Hope you've enjoyed. We'll have a little bit more progress on that next week, and hopefully I'll have fixed pressure plates versus portals. And my next stream should probably be tomorrow, with some more Come Block Home, because there's some fun stuff to show up there. Then on Thursday night, we have some more Among Us, and if you're lucky, there might be another Come Block Home on Friday, but keep an eye out on Twitter for any announcements of that. And then on Saturday, we'll have the Carousel, and if you happen to be a patron, then on this Sunday, we will be having our Patron Games Day for the month, and that will include the End Dragon fight on the Patron server, so keep an eye out for that. Although it's going to be interesting, since we've just established that incorporeal creatures can't go through the end portal, so I hope nobody, like, we might have to hold off on giving people that for a bit. Otherwise, I'll be back with more of this next week on Tuesday, and keep an eye out on youtube.com/RememberComic for any videos I put out. And of course, everything I do is powered by you at patreon.com/line. Hope you've all enjoyed, and I'll catch you all as ever next time.